I have a small request. Our goal is to deliver you the best practical knowledge, and if this video gives even 1% value, please press the subscribe button. It's free for you and means us a lot.
Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of FinEcon. Today our guest is Mr. Temur Yusupov. He is an alumnus of Westminster University in Tashkent. Also, he has earned his graduate degree in finance from the University of Amsterdam, and now he's working in the Netherlands. Temur aka, assalamu alaikum. Thanks once again for agreeing to interview with us. Could you please give a brief introduction of yourself to those of our viewers who may not be familiar with you or not know you well?
Yes, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Temur. First of all, a great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I was really looking forward to this. And yeah, let's hit it off. Maybe let me just quickly share my background. So my name is Temur. I'm originally from Tashkent. I studied for 5 years in London. I did my secondary education there. I studied for 3 years in Austria, well, learned some German. I worked in Moscow in strategy consulting, also worked in the States for 8 months in hospitality through the work and travel program. So I graduated Westminster in 2018. So I studied economics and finance. And then I embarked on a few personal projects that I think will touch base upon later. And then I decided, hey, it's the right time to do masters. I wanted to do it in 2020, but I think we all know what kind of happened. So I said, hey, there's no point really of studying online. So I kind of postponed it for 1 year later. And then I moved to Amsterdam 2021, did my masters, and worked in consulting, worked on another project of mine, came back, and now I'm working at Randstad, which is a large Dutch public firm in the capacity of Senior Investor Relations Analyst. And also in my free time, I like to do quite a lot of sports. I do go to the gym. I do a bit of boxing, kickboxing, padel, play chess, and do like to read.
Wow, an interesting life you have, okay.
Thank you.
Could you please tell us more about your experience in London and Austria? Like, I didn't see it on LinkedIn. So was it high school or was it something else?
Yes, indeed. My father was a civil servant. So thanks to him, he worked abroad, and usually you're allowed to bring your family. So when I was 4 years old, we worked in London. So we moved to London. I didn't work at that time because I was still a bit too young. So I went to kindergarten and reception and first grade, then returned back to Uzbekistan. I went to school number 17 in Tashkent. For those who know, it's right next to Alor Bazaar. Then we moved to Austria when I was 11, came back when I was 14. I finished the high school. I entered one of the academic lyceums in Tashkent, and then there was opportunity to study in London in a private high school, and I won a big academic scholarship based on my grades, based on my IELTS score, etc. And then I also received a lot of support from my family, namely my brother. So when at the age of 16, I moved to London, and I studied there for 2 years. Went through the system called A-levels, which is essentially 12th and 13th grade. I studied economics, maths, history, German, and Russian because it was basically allowed. And in my first year in the summer, I managed to secure 2 internships. I mean, it was more like a spring week insights. And this kind of really introduced me to the world of finance. And to be fair, I think the greatest insight was that within 1 week of that internship, I probably learned more about finance and economics than sitting in a year in a classroom.
Wow. So you did an internship while still being in high school? Is that correct?
Yes, I was 17. So my first spring week internship was at a private equity fund, which invests into emerging markets. And I secured it not because I was amazing at networking, But because my brother also worked in finance in London, and through one of his friends, I basically landed that Spring Week Insight.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, so that was in June 2013. And then in July, I also spent 1 week doing a Spring Week internship at Deutsche Bank, which is where I really, I think, kind of got the first state of finance.
So the Spring Week internship thing, is it like something specific to London, to England, or like I have never encountered this before? Could you please tell a little bit about that too?
Yes, of course. I do think it's predominantly like a UK thing because I very rarely hear anything about this sort of opportunities in Europe, because usually, so the way maybe it's structured in Europe, and maybe I will talk about the Netherlands, is that normally if you do the internship, you do it in the summer when you're studying at like undergraduate level.
Yeah.
But in London specifically, there are Spring Week Insights, that's what it's called,
Yeah.
which is basically like a 1 week internship, but you're not really assigned any real task. So my task was, for instance, to sit at various desks. So when I was in Deutsche Bank, I sat with people from the emerging markets team, from the equity derivatives team, from the fixed income team. So I was just literally shadowing the people, sitting next to them, and just asking a bunch of questions, trying not to be annoying. But
Yeah.
I think it's a really UK specific thing. And I know there are opportunities available both for high school students and undergraduate students. And right now I see people who have like 5, 6 different internships, well,
Mm.
Spring Week Insights, but at least it shows that you're not sitting doing nothing and that you're actually, taking the chances and applying. And I think it's a very straightforward application process.
So it is basically a 1 week introduction to some type of field inside finance or any other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What did you really learn from your from those internships, and what do you think was the most like impactful thing that you learned that you were able to use later in your career? Was there something like that?
I think two real things that I can take away from this. First of all, maybe just to again set the context, I was 17 years old. I think we all at that age are very idealistic and we have like a very simple view of the world. This is black, this is white. So at that time, I readjusted learning about economics, what is kind of the difference between economics and finance. I was reading newspapers such as Financial Times, The Economist, following the news and trying just to understand, how does money work? What are interest rates? What are the relationship between macroeconomic events? But for me, at that time, when you're just studying in a high school or even at university, those are very abstract concepts that you think that sort of make sense maybe on paper, but you don't really follow in the real world. And two
Yeah.
things that I still remember take away. The first thing was that I think it doesn't matter if it's finance or non-finance. It's the importance of showing up to work, right? I remember this was my first time when I had to be, well, I didn't have fixed hours, but I would come at 7 a.m. in the morning and leave at 6 p.m. in the evening. So for the whole week. And I think this just showed me how, and whenever I used to come at 7 a.m., I already saw people sitting there since 6. And this really kind of showed me how important it is just to show up and sort of be there. And I'd still try to kind of uh, take away from that. My second takeaway was, and this is funny, so when I was in Deutsche Bank, I started learning about indexes. So the leading UK index is called FTSE 100, which is the 100 largest UK-based companies. And then I started basically paper trading, right? I knew there was an event from European Central Bank and the Bank of England on Thursday, and I sort of initiated a position on Monday. And then I remember on Friday, because I expected to have some positive announcement, I think I made like £2,000 on paper. But of course, then my brother told me, yeah, I mean, try it with real money, then you'll see
Wow.
the difference. And I think this kind of opened my eyes how, yes, you can be all theoretical, know all the ins and outs. But when it comes to the real thing, when you have to, pay or invest and you're risking your own money, that's a very different game.
So, do you kind of invest nowadays too? Like, and did it change your approach? Like, did it influence your approach to investing, that experience?
Yeah, well, for me, so the way that I look at it is that I'm not investing as much as I wish. So, but this is my line of thought. Again, I'm not offering any investment advice. And my second
Yeah.
disclaimer is all the views that I'm saying that are my own views do not represent anyone else. Yeah, when it comes to investing, right? So let's say if you invest in the stock market, let's say S&P 500, give or take, your average return is going to be 7% a year, right? So the way I thought about it is that I have the opportunity, let's say, to put $100 and get 7%,
Yeah.
or I can use that money and put it in myself. Buy a new course, buy some books. And the way I see it is I'm still at the stage where I'm learning quite a lot. And for me, the investment in myself, I think, is better than the 7% that I can get. What I think really also helped me about investing is understanding a little bit how the psychology of money works. And I think it works a bit different for everyone. What works for me personally is understanding that, well, first of all, um, it's important to create a habit, and secondly, it's important to understand what do you value more. Do you value sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. But do you value to be sort of to be correct in the short term, or do you value to be correct in the long term? And just kind of understanding sort of where you're lying on that. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could do more investing, but for now, I just try to invest more in myself.
By investing yourself, you mean education, like professional development,
Education,
right? Yeah. Okay.
exactly. Even like meeting new people, which I think is also kind of an investment.
Yeah.
Taking people for lunch, dinner, coffee,
Just
etc.
networking. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you. So moving on with these internships, you said that you did an internship in Moscow. How did you come
Yeah.
to land that internship, and how was your experience compared to London?
Yeah, of course. So I finished my high school when I was 18. I got into a few unis, but at that time I couldn't afford to study. So I didn't win the scholarship, so I took a gap year and I thought, okay, I'm gonna get some work experience and then ask the university for more money because at that time, in 2014, my total cost of attendance for bachelor was 150,000 USD, which was
Wow.
quite a lot,
Yeah.
especially in 2014 money. So that being said, I returned to Uzbekistan. I interned at the National Bank of Uzbekistan for 2 months. And of course, yeah, I mean, the difference in culture um, between working at National Bank of Uzbekistan, interning at Deutsche Bank is vast. So after 2 months, I thought, okay, I think I am ready for my next chapter. So my brother here helped me quite a lot because he worked at Deutsche Bank too. And
Hmm.
he told me there is an opportunity. He said, I'm going to connect you to one person that he used to work with in Moscow. And he said, try to see what he can offer. So I got on a call with him. We had 2 interviews, and he said, hey, I'm happy to offer you an internship. And I thought, okay, I'm 18 years old. I will have 4 internships, right? Private equity, Deutsche
Yeah.
in London, National Bank in Uzbekistan, and Deutsche Bank in Moscow. And I thought that this is going to be, I will have a great head start. And then I learned the hard way that the next day after I landed in Moscow, I've been told that that internship is not going to happen. And I said, like, how come?
Oh.
Because I flew here, I secured housing. It's a free internship, so the companies don't kind of
Yeah.
investing anything into it. All I need is just to have a pass. And they said, yeah, there was some complications, legal, HR, and I understood. Well, that's it. That's not going to happen. Of course, I was initially upset, but I thought, okay, I'm here. I might as well try to secure something else. And then I just started applying to all the internships that were possible. And in the end of the day, after I think 3 weeks, I secured an internship to work in strategy consulting in JLL, which is a real estate investment management company. And I interned there for 2 months.
Oh, so at that time you did not have a college education at all, right?
No, no, I was still
Wow,
high school
that's
student.
very impressive. Wow. And
Thank you.
you spent like 2 months there?
Yes, indeed.
Was it a paid internship or was it?
No, no, it was a free internship. But to be honest, I thought, okay, I'm 18 years old. I haven't
Yeah,
spent one day at a college. So I
yeah.
thought, okay, I'm just going to work for the name. So I only got a free travel pass. Um, so yeah, I was residing outside of Moscow in a small town called Mytishi,
Mhm.
which is 70 kilometers outside of Moscow. So my commute would take 1.5 hours or 2 hours one way and 1.5 hours back. So yeah, fun times.
Looking back, was that experience like was the experience you had in Moscow like worth it for
Oh, for
you?
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I think this was also the time that I was trying to kind of be very independent from my family.
Yeah.
I was very committed to not take any money from the parents. So I said, hey, this is kind of my chance to prove myself. And then I had a lot of highs and downs. I was, of course, initially upset that I didn't get my internship, but then said, hey, it is what it is. Can't blame anyone. Didn't work out, but I'm here. That's the most important thing. Um, and I think it just told me to be resilient because I had a goal, and when I returned, I said, hey, I worked in Moscow under minus 27 degrees, and I did a lot of work actually outside because on the project I was working on, we were doing feasibility studies for a new shopping center. And in fact, at that time, half of the top 10 largest shopping malls were built in Russia, in Moscow specifically. So I
Yeah.
was going to the other shopping malls and manually counting the amount of people, the passenger traffic. So
Oh.
this means I was 8 hours a day outside under minus 25 degrees, collecting the data, coming to the office, putting it all down. But I thought, hey, it's not pleasant. But I thought, hey, I think it
Well,
will pay off
yeah,
someday.
it's really harsh, but I believe it has taught you a lot of stuff.
For sure.
Especially it made you like a stronger person. It's not an easy
Yeah,
thing
for
to
sure.
like. I live in Seoul, and we sometimes have like minus 20, minus 25, and the cold is like unbearable. I cannot imagine you standing there for 8 hours. Wow. Yeah, I'm impressed. Like, wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
And after coming back, so to Uzbekistan, how like how did you use that experience, that knowledge to,
Mhm.
build your career further, like during the
Yeah.
university times and after you have graduated from your university?
Oh yeah, I think the most important thing is that when I came back from London, I was still like a bit of a teenager, right? But when I came back after Moscow, I felt, like a young man, I would say, right? Because I've been quite through a lot. I had some accommodation issues. For quite some time, I used to live in a two-bedroom apartment with 8 other people, so 9 people in 40 square meters. Um, but I think it all told me great lessons, and I think the lesson is just resilience. So when I came back, I talked to the university, and they said, "Well, we still can't offer you any funding." So I said, "Okay, what is the other alternative?" And then I went to Westminster, and I thought, "Hey, it's 150,000 for 3 years, or it's seven and a
Yeah.
half thousand for 3 years." So I
Yeah.
picked Westminster, and this is the choice that I don't regret at all, um, because I understood that you know I always had a desire to study abroad, but then I thought, okay, there are other ways that you can achieve it, and I thought
Yeah.
at least I will have the chance to study with the brightest students from all of Uzbekistan,
Yeah.
because I think at that time. I'm not sure how it is right now, but at that time, I think Westminster was the best university in the country.
Yeah.
So I entered it when I was in my free time. I started to teach. So I was teaching maths and English using IELTS.
Yeah.
And then I would love to say that I was applying for internships and networking at my undergraduate, but I didn't because my main focus was to go to the States for work and travel to earn some money, pay for my education, because I was very determined to make sure that I'm able to self-finance my education.
Well, were you able to like? Did you manage to secure a work and travel offer? And did you
Yes,
in
I did
fact
because
go?
at that time it was still relatively easy. So I managed to go to the States for 2 summers, 2016, 2017. Great experience, but
Yeah.
I kind of managed to cover all my expenses, bring some money home. But I think the most important thing is I was 20, young in the United States.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best experiences that you can have, to be honest.
Oh. Yeah. After Moscow, it must have felt
Oh,
like
for
a
sure.
heaven. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. I was like
Wow.
going from -20 to +30. I was like, hey, I'm happy.
What state did you go to? Like,
Yeah,
or states?
I went to Maryland. So there is a city about 2 hours away from Washington, D.C. So that was
Mhm.
my first city. And in my second year, I went to Massachusetts on a small island called Nantucket. So those who know, there's a book called Moby Dick and about killing this giant whale, and it happens around Nantucket Island. But yeah, I had a great time.
Oh, oh. So you've been to the United States, like you've visited like so many countries by the time you have basically graduated. Um, what did you like? Where did you work after coming back to Uzbekistan, or did you come back at all? Because there seems to be a gap on your LinkedIn profile. Uh,
Yeah,
so I couldn't really comprehend what was going on.
yeah, good for you to notice. Yeah, so when I came back to Uzbekistan, I said, okay, I'm 22, I just graduated. And I thought, okay, maybe it's a good time for me to kind of build my own projects. So I decided to go to this entrepreneurial path. I worked in a travel startup with my friends. I had an education center where we were teaching people accounting, especially financial accounting and management accounting,
Yeah.
under the ACCA qualification. We also publish our own materials in English and in Russian. And I also had a work and travel agency because I thought there is a gap in the services provided, and I thought we could kind of fulfill that role. So in those 3 years between my master's and my bachelor's, I was really sort of pursuing my personal project because I thought, okay, this is the time where I can make mistakes, where I can learn, and I thought that the opportunity for me to kind of build something on my own, not and 90% of time to fail,
Yeah.
is going to be much greater than, for instance, working in audit for 60, 70 hours. Just different experiences. That's all.
So basically, you have worked for yourself. You kind of
Exactly.
co-owned a business probably. And
Exactly.
how does it feel now that you're working on like at a company? How does it feel to work for someone compared to like working for yourself, like fully? I know that you have projects now going on too, but
Hmm.
at that time, when you graduated from like Westminster, you didn't work for any company at all. It was just fully your projects, and now you're like
Hmm.
combining. Which kind of approach do you prefer more, would you say, and why?
Well, good one. I think the most important thing is to understand what kind of works best for you because for every individual, it's a bit different, right? So for every approach, there are pros and cons, right? So when you're sort of self-employed, yes, you have sort of greater flexibility and autonomy, but then you are sort of in charge of making sure you're getting your salary. If you have a team, my first priority was always making sure that my team is getting paid instead of me first,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're the owner, you understand that with any reward, there's an element of risk, especially in the beginning. The reward is probably very tiny and the risk is very huge, right? Because I'm not just talking about money, but I'm talking about your time that you can't get back. I'm talking about your emotional and moral resources that you're committed
Yeah.
towards building something. And if that doesn't work, well, it can take a bit of a toll. Also that you have uncertainty, anxiety, because if you pull up any relevant statistic, 9 out of 10 startups fail in the first year, and then
Mhm.
9 of the 10 surviving startups fail within 5 years. So the odds of building something are very low. Of course, we see those examples with Mark Zuckerberg, with Bill Gates, but then if you delve a little bit deeper, and there's a book on it called Outliers.
Yeah.
So Bill Gates had the opportunity to study in a school of 300 people, where the first ever computers were introduced in the curriculum in the 1970s. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm not saying this was the main factor, but since the age of 12, he had access to a computer. If you compare,
Mm.
for instance, to my parents, who were also studying, let's say at the same age, nobody knew what a computer was. So it's also about taking the most of the opportunities, right? And
Yeah.
understanding that it's only the small few who really make it on the top. So
Yeah.
this is the pros and cons about working for yourself. Now, if you compare it to a corporate world, I think, of course, you have greater stability.
Yeah.
You also sort of have like a clearer progression towards your professional growth, right? For instance, you start an intern, then you become an analyst. You work 1 or 2 years, you become an associate, and so on. I think that, I mean, of course, looking back at it right now, I wouldn't want to change anything. But if I had a second chance, I would probably say that there's a greater ROI towards working in a corporate in the beginning stage of your career. Three reasons. First of all, you're still very naive and sort of idealistic.
Yeah.
My goal was, okay, I'm 22. In 3 years, I'm going to be a millionaire. I mean, how will I get there? I don't know, but I'll figure out something, right? I mean, doesn't really
Yeah.
sound like a plan. Whereas in the corporate world, if you manage to land in a good company with a good team, you have the opportunity to kind of nurture and get all the knowledge, right? So if you work in an advisory function, you're advising companies. You see how companies' financials look like. You see what sort of affects them. So you have like a greater exposure, greater visibility on how businesses are run. Then you also have the stability. So you don't
Yeah.
think about, oh, when is my next payment gonna come? If I have team and that people rely on you, you don't really have that anxiety. So I think in the beginning, for sure, there is still a lot of things that you can learn especially from large
Mhm.
corporates.
Would you say that it gives you the necessary skill set to become a better businessman, or not
I think for
necessarily?
sure. I think for sure. I mean, of course, um, in hindsight, of course, it's easier to judge. But I think that if you work in corporate for 10 years, and I'm not saying you have to work at one firm or at one
Yeah.
position, I'm sure there's going to be some rotation. You'll be able just to have a better grasp of, first of all, what is that you're really looking for? Because I don't think a lot of people know what they want when they're just finishing university. Second thing, and I think this is maybe even more important, you at least understand what you don't want to do. Um, and because this is also important, right? Because I mean, um, I've spoken to a lot of people who feel they're a bit stuck in their career,
Yeah.
and they're like, I don't know how to change it. And I always tell them the first thing you gotta do, think about what you don't want to do. So starting from the reverse. So if you have 10 options, cross
Yeah.
out 8 of the options that don't work for you, and just focus on the two and try it out. And thirdly, so my mindset when I was young was like this: I want to go to as many countries and work as many jobs to kind of get a taste of everything, and then sort of decide of what I want to do. So I had opportunity to work in corporate bank, investment bank, consulting, um, management consulting, large corporate. I went my own sort of self-employed way, right? So
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to get a glimpse of kind of everything. and now to really decide what I want to focus in the next 5, 10 years.
Well, like it doesn't like currently it doesn't seem like this is like your final, destination being here, uh, like following your story. So would you like are you happy with your decision to kind of diversify your experiences by traveling around the world and working different jobs than, let's say, like staying in one place and trying to progress as much as you can? Like, have you had such thoughts? And if yes, why are you deciding to continue living the way you are living right now?
Mhm. Well, I think I had my experience of being this nomad where I go to one country, come back, change, etc. Which I think is totally okay when you're young. But I think at a certain point of life, you kind of just want to settle. And these are the thoughts that I've been asking myself when I was 24, 25. I was like, okay, now I have some work experience. I made some mistakes. Well, this is what I learned. This is kind of what I want to improve. What is kind of my next step? And then I thought, okay, I want to do a master's. And I always wanted to do a master's a little bit after I graduate, so not do it
Yeah.
immediately, just because I want to get some more work experience and life experience. And I chose Netherlands for a bunch of reasons. But for me, I thought, okay, maybe this is the country where you can sort of settle down and put my roots. And with God's help, by September it will be 5 years that I'm here. And in those 5 years, I've managed to finish my master's, um, start working management consulting, open a new project, exit that project, started at a new job, which I'm currently am, um, move like 4 times,
Yeah.
which also takes a lot of energy. Met my partner also here, so I'm very fortunate about it. Probably my best career decision. Um, and yeah, now I'm also working on my passion project, which is Elite Scholar. And yeah, so in those 5 years, I can really see that I had the opportunity to get a lot of experiences from different places, and now
Mhm.
I just use it to kind of stay at one place. I'm not saying we're going to be here for the next 20 years, but for sure for the next few years to kind of
Yeah,
settle
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and get the roots
Oh,
going.
thank you for the response. So, elaborating on your like masters and the choice of your country. So, you've been to so many countries. You've been to the United States, basically. Why did you decide to come to Netherlands specifically instead of like going to get an MBA somewhere in London or the US or some other
Mhm.
country in Europe? Why specifically that country?
Yeah, so maybe a little bit of also of context. So it was like 2020, 21. And I'm not recommending doing this to anyone because, in hindsight, I
Yeah,
would have done something completely else. But the way I was thinking, there was still COVID. Um, so that kind of played a lot of my thinking because I think, okay, let's say if I go to the university, what if there's going to be like a second outbreak and we're still going to be locked down? And, I'm going to be looking for a job and probably that's going to also be delayed, right? Because
yeah,
firms probably don't want to hire someone in the middle of the pandemic, right? So then I started thinking, okay, I want to go to an English speaking country. So this really doesn't leave a lot of options. So for me, I was thinking UK or US. I thought US, I have a very, let's say, non-traditional background. So I thought, okay, they would probably not be, I would be probably able to get an offer. But then financing, of course, that's kind of the hard part, right?
yeah,
Because it's relatively straightforward to get an offer from a top 100 masters if you have good grades, experience, but paying for that offer as an international student, that's a whole different discussion.
yeah,
Uh, so I thought, okay, US, kind of far away, 2 year masters, probably, not gonna need to get a lot of probably student debt to finance it.
yeah,
So that was uncertain. And then I thought about the UK. I thought, okay, it's a 1 year program. I've already done, I lived there, so I'm familiar with the place, but I just wasn't quite sure about it because at that time, UK was just undergoing through Brexit. So for me, that was uncertain. And I thought, okay, how would employers react post Brexit? Probably they're not going to be offering a lot of jobs.
Mhm.
Plus the complication with visa, etc. So I thought, okay, I'll put a big question mark. And then I was thinking, okay, what is the other country in Europe that is English speaking, that has a relatively sort of straightforward path towards graduating and entering the job market? And then I stopped on Netherlands. And then I started reading, and I realized that the deadline for my program is tomorrow. So in three
Wow.
hours, I nailed the application. It helped me that when I was doing my undergraduate, I did my GMAT. So my test
Yeah.
was still there. So I only had to refine the essays, um, prepare the references, and call my referees the next day and to say, hey, I'm submitting the application, would appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Um, and even though I got rejected, I fought an appeal, and eventually, I studied and I finished at university.
Well, did you get rejected the first, like the
Yeah, I
first
got
time?
rejected. I got
Wow.
rejected, and the reason for the rejection was they thought that my undergraduate degree, which is from the University of Westminster,
Yeah.
is not applicable towards the European undergraduate standards. So I thought, okay, it's either the University of Westminster,
Yeah.
you know, misled me saying that that's not a UK degree, or the University of Amsterdam is wrong. So I got all the evidence to suggest that this is indeed a British degree that is validated in the UK but just granted in Uzbekistan through the partner institution. And after 1 month of appeals, I managed to kind of win my place
Wow.
back.
Like, how is the financing part? Like you were talking about it a lot. Like, how is the cost of education in Netherlands? Like, how was it for
Mm.
you? Did you have to take loans?
Yeah, so at that time, the tuition fee was 16,000 euros, plus you needed money for living expenses. So I would reckon total cost would be 3,000 euros a month, because especially if you're living in
Yeah,
Amsterdam,
very
minimum rent
expensive.
would be 900 at least. And this is kind of exactly where I came in from. So the way I was calculating was okay, first of all, I applied late, so I didn't have a chance to participate in scholarships, which
Yeah,
is, again, I'm not recommending to do this everyone. I'm just kind of sharing my personal story. Secondly, um, the way I approached it is I made a very detailed financial plan. I said, okay, the university allows me to pay the tuition fee in installments. So 10 monthly installments is 1,600 a month. Couple of my rent, that's 900, which is 2,500. And let's say 700 for living expenses. So this means every month I needed to bring 3,200 euros,
yeah.
which I thought okay. So I applied for the visa. I had a little bit of savings. I was working then in a remote job in digital marketing, which is completely unrelated to finance.
Yeah.
Um, Working in a digital marketing job, I had some savings that I showed, and then I sort of convinced the university to give me the visa. I entered, and then I was literally just paying and saving up month for month. So I didn't take any loans. When I finished my studies, I still had a remaining balance to be paid for the university, which I paid 2, 3 months after I graduated. So university gave me a special arrangement that basically postponed my tuition fees till end of the year. So this really helped me because I started
Wow.
negotiating them, and after 2 months they said, "Hey, okay, you know what? You just make sure you pay by end of the year, and then you'll collect your diploma." And I said, "Okay, I'm fine with that."
Wow. And did you like find a job like after your graduation to pay off your debt, or did you hold on to your job like that was online that you mentioned?
So I knew at some point that job probably will end, and then I wanted to really transition into finance. So I started applying to jobs, going to networking events when I was studying.
Yeah.
So my usual day would be I would wake up in the morning, work for my remote job, go to university, come back in the evening, do a bit of studying, do the work again. So, and then I was looking for internships, networking, going to events. So I think in that 1 year, I applied to around 70 jobs, went to 50 different events. And just by pure luck, I found an internship opportunity in management
Mm.
consulting. So I started to work there during the summer. And then they made me a return offer. So I saved up a little bit of money, used a little bit of the savings, and I was basically debt free by October,
Wow.
which really helped me a lot.
Was that internship like paid, or did you have
Yeah,
to?
that was a paid internship. Of
Oh,
course, I
that
I
is.
I, I told them,
Yeah.
hey, I'm ready to work for free because, well, kind of did that before.
Yeah.
But he said, no, 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 we'll pay you. And yeah, so that really helped. And yeah.
Did you have like a lot of international students on your cohort, and like did they struggle to find jobs too? Because I know that like finding a job in Europe might be a bit tough compared to like the UK or the US for international students, especially like how did you like what was your experience with that and your group mates?
Yeah, so I would say the cohort was quite international. I don't have the numbers on top of my head, but I would say it's probably like 50-50. So 50% Dutch
Hmm.
and 50% internationals. The tricky part about the Netherlands is that even though there are a lot of finance jobs available, first of all, I would say 80% of the finance jobs, they do ask you to be fluent in Dutch. And of course,
Yeah.
not everyone is able to progress to that level yet. Secondly, um, it also depends on the sponsorship opportunities. So even though most of the companies are able to sponsor, I believe there are certain quotas available that they can give it to entry-level jobs. So they can hire someone on a manager level, but on an
Yeah.
entry-level job, they have to allocate a quota, so they're also very hesitant. So this means the amount of jobs left for internationals that don't know the local language and that don't require sponsorship is not a lot. And this means that right now, for let's say an M&A internship opportunity at KPMG, there are 500 applicants for one job. And of
Wow.
course, it's very hard to stand out of 500 people. And in some jobs, it's 1,000 or 1,500 even.
Mm.
But we were fortunate, and this is because there was the timing of COVID, which business activity went down, but
Yeah.
then there was a really fast recovery.
It was picking
And
up,
there's
right?
still a yeah, so the companies were hiring. So 22, 23, it was relatively easier to get a job.
Yeah.
And I would say 90% of my classmates that we met for graduation, they were all employed within the summer.
Oh, that's very
But now
impressive.
I think it's a bit different.
So how did you like your job after your graduation, and why did you decide to switch roles or like switch companies
Yeah,
later?
so I liked management consulting. I always wanted to work there. And the reason why I like it is, first of all, um, you get an opportunity to advise companies, and
Yeah.
you are sort of positioning yourself as an expert. Which means you get to talk to executives, business leaders that you probably wouldn't have the opportunity to talk to um, in a different setting. Secondly, you're really good. If the opportunity is right, you can really own the project. So in my third week of internship, I was already kind of taking the lead on a project and presenting it to the
Mm.
chief operating officer of a company that makes
Fine.
60 million revenues, which is considered very small in the US, but very large when
In Europe, yeah.
in Uzbekistan for sure. But unfortunately, as I said, it was a boutique firm, so they weren't able to provide me sponsorship. But I knew about it before. So in so I worked there for a year, and in May 2023, I knew my contract would be up by end of August. I started kind of reaching out to people and applying for jobs, and then I applied to 150 jobs. Had a few final rounds, and yeah, I decided to go with Randstad, which is my current employer. and the opportunity was to work in the investor relations team.
Thank you for sharing your work experience and educational experience. Now, I would like to smoothly switch to talking about your personal project that you're doing right now, which is called Elite Scholars, if I'm not mistaken. So, why did you kind of choose to pursue a project in that field? Like, given your background in finance and your interest in consulting and like banking, it seems a bit abrupt to someone who does not know you well.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So I think it all started with me in yeah, for context. A few years ago, I helped a friend to win a fully funded scholarship to study in the UK. And then the next year after that, I helped two more of my friends to also win fully funded scholarships. And then I thought, okay, this was the time, this was about 2 years ago, that I started thinking, okay, what is that I really want to do? Because I like finance, right? I studied finance,
Yeah.
I worked in finance, different divisions, but I don't really see myself doing this for the rest of my life because I think eventually I'll move on. And the way, I mean, what's important for me, of course, is at that time that I finally had the stability, first of all,
Yeah.
because I was like, okay, I finished my studies. I fortunately was able to pay it all by myself. I switched a few jobs, which is, I think, fine in the beginning of the career. I'm starting to get used to the Netherlands, kind of speaking the language, getting to know the city, right? Because now I was in this very rush period, going from
Yeah.
one thing to the other. But I was like, okay, now I have stability. I met my partner. We moved to a new place. So like, okay, now this is like the opportunity that I can start putting my roots. And I was thinking, okay, what is that really excites me? Because yes, I like my job, I like the company, but as I said, if I look in 10, 15 years or 20 years, I'm not sure I will be doing this.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, what is something that can really um, feel? So so I was reading a book, and there was this one quote about finding something that you really like, and what that's something that you can work on that doesn't feel like work. This means that nobody can sort of compete you. So basically saying,
Yeah.
find your niche and make the best out of it. And I was thinking, okay, well, what is that I like best? When I was at university, I was teaching. And of course, the first concern was for me that financially, I still kind of wanted to prove the point that I'm independent. But then I also found a lot of joy about helping someone
Yeah.
to hit the goals. And okay, so I said, okay, teaching English, right? I mean, I don't think I'll be coming back to teaching English, but I have quite a lot of experience and I've made a lot of mistakes. I face a lot of rejections. I got
Yeah.
rejected from my dream university. I got rejected from financing. When I was applying for masters, I got 7 rejections out of 9. I got rejected from the jobs that I was interviewing for. Um, I didn't really have like a clear career plan when I was finishing, let's say, my undergraduate or masters, right? So my first
Yeah.
goal was, okay, get a job and then kind of see what happens, which all worked in my favor. But I thought, okay, maybe I can pass this knowledge to someone who doesn't have to make all those mistakes and have this extra stress and anxiety and feel like, okay, is there anyone that he can talk to, he or she? And thirdly, I thought, okay, what is sort of the legacy that I can leave right behind? So let's say in 50 years, I'm sitting with my grandkids, right? I mean, very
Yeah.
hypothetical example. And they'll ask me, okay, what is that that you do? What is that you're part of? Of course, I would say I've done this and this and this, family, etc. But I felt that I want to give something kind of to the society.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought, okay, what is that I can do? I mean, I'm not a doctor. I cannot save lives, right? I'm not an engineer. I can't build anything. I mean, I can build spreadsheets, but am I really saving anyone's life there? Probably not. And I thought about what about teaching? Because, well, um, I think I think most of my students, at least with English, were happy. And then I thought, okay, I helped a few of my friends win scholarships. So if I can do it for them, why don't I do for more people? And this is how Elite Scholar was born. So I effectively began working in August 24 as something like a weekend hustle.
So this project basically was your search for self-fulfillment and like kind of it is a reflection of your values and of who you want to be in kind of next decade, let's say, and it's your way of giving back to society. Would you say that's true? Like my description of it?
Yeah, I think. So when I started, I thought, okay, let me just try it out. The worst thing works. Worst things, if it doesn't work out, that's fine.
Yeah.
But at least I thought, okay, if I change one person's life, right, and let's say that person decides to have a family, kids, etc., I'm kind of changing the lives of like 5, 6 people down the line.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, I think the point where I experience it the most is, so like 6 months ago, I went to Cambridge to actually visit my mentees. So I have 2 of my current students that are studying in Cambridge on a full scholarship.
Oh.
And I met one of them. She was with her partner. So we had lunch, and then she said, "Oh, let me show you Cambridge." And we went to King's College, which is the most famous college in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And the scenery it's 5 in the evening on a cold November evening. The sun is sunsetting, but then because it's 5, they have the chapels.
Yeah.
And I saw the harmony. I saw that I helped someone to not just enroll at Cambridge, but basically study there for free.
Yeah.
And positively changing someone's life. And I thought, okay, I didn't go to Cambridge, which is fine. I'm not regretting anything. But if I can help someone to get to the university of their dream, to get the job that he or she really wanted, this is kind of the impact that I'll feel. And I feel, okay, whatever happens 20, 30 years later, we might not be in touch, when we might not be best friends, but there will be a positive memory, there will be a legacy saying, hey, this Timur guy really helped me to get close to my dreams and believed in me. And for me, that was like the profound moment, really. This is where everything clicked, and I almost cried.
This is
but
really
I didn't.
beautiful. Yeah. So you
I
wanted like a tangible way of like changing people's life, like not tangible, but like direct way
yeah,
of influencing and changing people's lives, right? Wow.
yeah, exactly. I hope not to sound too cheesy, but I thought,
And
okay,
it does not. Yeah, it does not. Like knowing the context of what you've been through, like it really sounds like you're trying to give back to society rather than just,
yeah.
trying to make some money. So, um, most of your students, I assume, are from like Uzbekistan.
Sorry.
Oh, something
Yeah,
happened
I
to
have
your
a bit of
sheet.
sun, so yeah,
Yeah, it's okay now.
yeah.
I assume most of your students are from Uzbekistan. Like, I might be wrong, but what would you say makes like an applicant from Uzbekistan stand out when applying to like top colleges, top schools around the world? And how do you think they can improve their chances of getting a scholarship? Because funding is a huge problem for someone coming from a country like Uzbekistan.
Oh, good one. Yeah, so indeed, I would say 80, 90% of my mentees are from Uzbekistan. I I have a couple from Kazakhstan, a couple from Azerbaijan. I have
Yeah.
a few students who are actually based in the Netherlands and London, but they are more focused on career support, which is basically helping them kind of secure the jobs and internships. So the way that an applicant from Uzbekistan can stand out, right? So first of all, I don't know, maybe fortunately, maybe unfortunately, but fortunately, there are not a lot of Uzbeks who go to top universities. And why do I say fortunately? First of all, it gives a real advantage when it comes to admissions, because right now, universities really value diversity, and not just diversity of thought, but also diversity of experience. And which means, let's say someone's applying to a, let's say, top MBA program.
Yeah.
And if you look at the proportion of the class, there will be one student from Uzbekistan, one student from Azerbaijan, 100 people from China, 75 people from India. So actually, if you're Indian and Chinese, it's more harder to stand out because you have to compete in your own sort of cohort, right?
Yeah.
Whereas students from Uzbekistan might have an advantage. And this, for instance, I'm really proud to say that one of my mentees is the first ever LBS admit.
Oh.
So an LBS MBA is probably like a top 4 MBA globally. And of course, this is not the only reason why he got selected. He got excellent experience, real good test scores. But this diversity of experience is really what matters. So that's kind of my first point. The second point is that I think Central Asia and Uzbekistan in particular has a very weird cultural dynamic, right? Because we are right in between Europe and China.
Yeah.
We're under a part of the Soviet Union for 70 plus years. We have our own incredibly rich history, but which means we were conquered by Arabs, Persians, Mongols, Greeks, etc. So there's a lot of cultural dynamic in there. But I think also the great quality that I see about applicants from Uzbekistan, there are no strangers to hard work. They really understand that you have to work hard to get where you are, and there is like an acceptance of this, and the mindset is like, okay, maybe I'm not good enough right now, but maybe in 6-9 months I'll show you the progress. And I really like this grit, and I can really see it among almost all of my applicants from Uzbekistan, that they really say, okay, this is where I am right now, this is where I want to be. And yes, it's hard to get there, but I'm willing to put in the work, I'm willing to put in the hours, and I really want to kind of make my life better. And this is something that you not always see, and I think I have great respect for that.
Yeah. So would you say that kind of setting a specific goal first, like, getting into Cambridge or something early on, and trying to, like, after having built a blueprint or like a roadmap, do you think it's better to just to have some kind of roadmap and try to follow it? And yeah, as you said, Uzbek people, like students from Uzbekistan, they really like to achieve the goals that they set. So do you think that so for someone in their 20s right now who want to study at a top college, do you think it's better to start building their way from the time, like from their undergraduate, like, yeah, undergraduate times, like when they're still in college, like is it okay to start thinking about getting a graduate degree? And how would you say is it better to approach kind of choosing the right program and building the right roadmap for yourself? Because as you mentioned earlier, we tend to be a bit naive and like idealistic when we're quite young, but at the same time, if you don't have a plan, basically like long-term plan, especially for top schools, it might hurt you at some point, if you miss some important stuff and don't do it on time. Yeah.
Well, that's a very complex question. I think I'll start with maybe a few bullet points. First of all, I think there has to be a realization that nobody is coming to save you. Like your parents are not going to take the tests that you need. Your brother is not going to take the exam. Your sister's not going to come and kind of decide the life for you. So at some certain point of time, especially when you're young, you kind of have to sit with yourself, look yourself in the mirror, and understand what is that you really want to be.
Yeah.
That's sort of this first point. The second point is understanding that you're not supposed to have your life figured out when you're 20 or 21, 22, doesn't matter. But what's important is to have some sort of a vision of where you want to be in 5 years' time. And why is this important? And this is probably the first thing that I talk when it comes to admissions. So I always say there are three stages. So the first
Yeah.
stage is getting an offer. I mean, that's like the most basic thing you need. You can't go to university if you don't have an offer. The second stage is getting financing. And trust me, believe me on this, it's easier to get to Cambridge than finding financing to go to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And the third part is okay, let's say you find the financing to go to Cambridge, Harvard, whatever. Let's say you graduated. What is the next step? Because you have the goal is done, adrenaline is gone. What's next, right? And I think the third point is the most hardest of all of them, because the way I think is like this. Okay, you are aiming to enter a school. You start the essays, you start the tests, you get the references, you work on your CV, you get the projects in,
Yeah.
accomplished. You get to university. University they tell you, hey, this is the curriculum, this is the exams, this is the coursework. You stay in, you grind out, you're done. But then sooner or later, university finishes, and the question is, okay, so what now?
What's that? Yeah.
Because the way you need to think about it, let's say you're 20 something, your career can realistically go till the age of 70, because better life expectancy, there's a greater awareness of your health. I feel, but maybe this is just me being subjective, that the younger generation tends to drink way less, to smoke way less than the older generation. There's a greater tendency of kind of taking care of yourself,
Yeah.
gym, etc. So your career is very long. So I think the idea is you need to sit down, have a 5-year plan, and make sure that university is, of course, a goal, but that's not the long-term goal. The long-term goal is your career, is your professional development, and university is just a catalyst to get there.
So basically what you're saying is we have to kind of think bigger, like beyond just getting into some university, beyond like chasing this prestige, and think like what we really want to do, and then decide like use the university as a means to achieve our goals, but not treat it as an end in itself, right?
Yes,
Did,
exactly.
did I get it right? Oh, yeah, okay. So then deriving another question from this answer would be, how can one kind of at least attempt to know, or so when you're 20, like as you said, you basically know nothing in life. Like you're really limited. Your experiences are limited. How can you know that, oh, this is who I really want to be in 5 years if you really don't have much experience, you know? Maybe, for instance, you dream of becoming a management consultant or investment banker, but you haven't touched a spreadsheet in your life. So how do you think, like, do you think there is some kind of technique or approach that would help you to become more realistic when it comes to goal setting, and to at least try to truly decide what you like and who you want to be, you know?
Mhm. Great question. I think the way you need to approach it is, there used to be a saying that I think, how do I put it lightly? That so okay, let's put it this way. 30 years ago, before the internet era, there was no
Yeah.
real way how to get information, right? So when I asked my parents how did they study, they said simple. They went to the library, got the book, and studied. Right now, we are fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, to live in the world of readily available information. I'm not just talking about Google, but I'm talking about all the AI chatbots, LLM models, right? I think the first thing first is just get a general understanding of the industry. So let's say you hear something about management consulting. Try to create a prompt, because I'm sure most of the people watching this already familiar with AI. Try to create a prompt saying, explain to me what is management consulting, like I'm an 8-year-old. I have no idea. And it's
Yeah.
okay to ask those questions, right? Because not everybody is born with that knowledge. Once you have some sort of understanding, The best way is you need to go and find the people to talk to. Don't do tests, don't do that. Make it simple. Say, okay, I'm trying to meet 20 people who are management consultants in my town. What do I do? How do I meet them?
Yeah.
I Google management consultant, Tashkent, London, whatever. And then I say, okay, so who are the people that work there? And mm, the easiest way to reach out is to LinkedIn. And you're like, oh, what's LinkedIn? Let me see let me explore how that is. You open a YouTube video and says, hey, how to fill a LinkedIn profile. So if you can do that in an hour, create a nice professional message, send it out to 20 people. Maybe five will respond. Out of the five, you might be lucky to meet two people because you don't have to
Yeah.
take for granted that people are going to respond. And with those two conversations, you might just get an understanding of what it really is. And then you ask, hey, do you have a friend or two that I can also talk to? Just want to kind of get to know the industry. I have zero expectations. I just need 30 minutes of your time and I'll buy the coffee. And then, in a span of a short week, you can meet with five people, and those conversations will probably be able to give you much greater insight than you're
Yeah.
just sitting in your home and doing nothing and stressing out.
So wow. I have actually never thought about it this way. Thank you so much for this advice. Actually, I'll be turning 21 soon, and
And there you
I
go.
believe I'll find it very useful. Moving on, but so when you reach out to tons of people, you usually kind of get rejected a lot. So how can you kind of, from your experience, if you ever encountered something like this, how can you kind of learn on your mistakes of like reaching out? Because if you, let's say, reach out to 20 people and you get ghosted, you may not know like what exactly you did wrong or what exactly you did right because you do not have any like feedback coming, would you suggest just keep like cold emailing or doing cold reach outs to as many people as possible, or try using some kind of methods or techniques or tools to kind of refine your answers and try better but with smaller quantity of people? Yeah.
I always say this networking is a bit like dating. So what it means? At first, you're horrible talking to girls, right? You don't know,
Yeah.
you embarrass yourself. But after the 10th conversation with the 10th person, hopefully, you might get a second date. And I think it just shows you that you're like, it's okay to make mistakes. Nobody's going to have a perfect response. And yes, 99% of the time, you're probably not going to get lucky. So what you do, okay, you say, okay, so I found 10 people on LinkedIn that I can reach out to. Before
Yeah.
I spam them, how about I create a message and show it to my older brother or my uncle who works in a bank and say, hey, if you got this message, would you respond or no? Right? So you probably have someone who works full time in any professional capacity.
Yeah.
So start with your relatives or friends and say, hey, this is the message. Can you just give me 2 lines of feedback? Keep it very short. Be like, hey, Tom, my name is Timur. I'm interested about management consulting. I know you work at this company. You have 20, 30 minutes to meet in a few weeks. Thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it
Yeah.
would help if you have a common connection, like you say, hey, we went to school together, university. Oh, I see you playing football. I also, play football, blah, blah, blah. So it's easier
Yeah,
to
so
bond with
finding
people.
like a common ground with
Yeah, that would help.
yeah. uh,
So
Thank you so much for this advice. Like I believe it
for
will
sure.
be useful not only for me but for everyone who is watching this podcast. So I assumed that this interview would last like twice. Yeah, around like 40 minutes, but we have talked more than an hour. I don't want to like take a lot of your time. So let's kind of wrap up this interview. And for the final
Okay.
question, would you like? So you have had an incredibly diverse, like a lot of experiences, diverse experiences. You have worked in many fields, lived in many countries. What kind of mindset has helped you when going through like incredibly difficult times in your life? Because from personal experience, I know that living abroad, like especially if you do not really know the language fully or you're not familiar with the culture, it might be like incredibly difficult and depressing. But you managed to find a job, you managed to stand there for like 8 hours and cold, and you had that some type of mindset that like it served like a fuel for you, to go through all of that. So could you kind of, if that's possible, put that into words and share some tips or advice on how to cope with general like challenges and difficulties in life?
Mm. Oof, that's a heavy one. So the way that I think about it is, you as a person, like, first of all, we live in a very globalized world, right? I think the world has never been as open as it was, or like it is right now. With everything going on, of course, I'm not saying there are no problems. There are still a lot of bad things happening. But first of all, it's so much easier to go and work and study abroad than it was 50 years. Like, think about the generation of our parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents, right? So we all live in difficult, uncertain times, but these are still the best times for mobility. That's the first thing. Second thing, which is related to the first thing, is you need to be able to try to take the best from every culture, right? I'm not saying
Yeah.
there is one culture that's better than the other. They're all different, right? So the way I looked at it is, when I was in the US, what I really encountered, but maybe also I was young, and just lucky and just happy to be there. But what
Yeah.
I encountered is that people in the US have this undying optimism that whatever happens, if you put your hard work and you get
Yeah.
lucky, but you get lucky not because you won a lottery, but because you worked so hard, you knocked on so many doors that one door will eventually open, that you'll
Yeah.
be successful in life. And I'm not saying just financial successful, but you'll get what you want, and which is the American dream, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is still sort of there. So this, and I thought,
Oh,
okay, this is like a great thing to have. It's like, whatever happens, you just stay optimistic. When I look at the way how it works in Uzbekistan, we've been always in the middle of trade, commerce, etc. Very diverse country, different
yeah.
nationalities. People speak 3, 4 languages, maybe even more. And I think it taught us how to kind of adapt, right? Because you're trying
Yeah.
not to
Yeah. Yeah.
be something, you're not taking sides, but you're sort of trying to be balanced. Um, when I studied in the UK, I saw, how important is this small talk and just trying to have a genuine conversation with a person, how much attention they pay towards, you know, conversations and really establishing that connection. When I was in Russia, I remember, yeah, I mean, people are very tough there, right? It's a tough climate.
Yeah.
It can get -30 in the winter, so you have to be kind of tough, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I was very fortunate to have all these experiences and to embrace it and kind of take the best of all the cultures. So in the Netherlands, um, people are quite productive here. They're also
Yeah.
quite direct. And I think it really helps in life to be direct, because and we also have this thing in Uzbekistan where you're not really, you're never direct. You can't,
Yeah.
you don't tell people no. You let's say, "Hey, Koramis." What does it mean? Nothing,
Yeah.
right? So we're trying to not to, I don't know, offend or avoid people. But I think we're also not really great at having tough conversations, because we're trying to be kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
diplomatic,
Yeah.
etc. Which is fine. I'm not saying this is correct. I'm not saying this is wrong. Just the way it is. And I think in times like we are living right now, I think what I'm always reminded of is that whatever troubles I have, those are not unique problems.
Yeah.
Very high certainty that out of 8 billion people and the billions of people that lived before, someone probably had a problem like you. And very likely that he probably wrote a book about it. And so the
Mm.
knowledge is there, right? If you want to be good at networking and you don't know nothing about networking, all you need to do is buy one book, which is the Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And you have to approach this. Everything is a skill that you can learn. Networking is a skill. Being good at presentation is a skill. Public speaking is a skill. Everything is a skill. And when there is a skill, there's like a book that you can learn. There's video that you can watch. But you need to have this will. You can't say, oh, I'm not good at networking, or I'm not good at writing essays, so I'm not going to do it. Well, you either learn it or you find someone that can help you to get there.
Yeah.
And right now you can't, and the reason why I was struggling at the beginning is before we used to say, well, we didn't have 50 years ago, we didn't have access to information. So if there was no information, it was very hard to access. Now there is so much resources, perhaps even too much resources.
Yeah.
But all it takes is just ask the right question. First of all, find the right people. And third of all is being open to adapting other people's perspectives, taking the best out of the cultures and thinking, okay, what is the best that I can take from this place? If you're in a bad job, right? You think, okay, it's a bad job, but there must be something positive about it.
Yeah.
If you're in a bad place in life or in a good place, there's always something that you can learn without blaming someone or something, without kind of being the victim. You say, hey, it's a bad situation. It is what it is, but this is maybe one thing that I learned. I read this book. Maybe it's not a great book, but there's one thing that I learned, and I'm trying to incorporate it. So just taking bits by pieces, really.
Oh, so to sum up, to summarize everything that you have said, like basically we have to be like authentic and genuine with ourselves and with others, try to be at least, and strive to understand perspectives and cultures that may differ from ours, like significantly at some point, and also like having this positive mindset and having some kind of goal, and even if you fail, instead of like playing a victim card, just analyzing your mistake and seeing what you did wrong and trying to do it next time but better with what you have learned from your previous attempt. Yeah, basically, did that
And
get your points right?
yes, you got it spot on. And one more thing is, I think we all need a mentor. We all need someone who's probably done this already, who had the opportunity to hopefully learn something from it and go for it. Because I think when you're young, you think, okay, I'm the smartest one. My parents don't know anything. My grandparents are dinosaurs. What can they really teach me? Because I'm this high tech heavy, etc. They can't even understand what Wi-Fi is. But in hindsight, in the end of the day, what they do have is experience. It might not be direct experience like you had, because we all have different experience and we react differently. But when I was 20 and my parents would tell me something, I was like, yeah, whatever. Right now, when they tell me something, I listen.
It's kind
I'm
of
like,
a
okay,
wisdom,
maybe,
right? That comes only with
yeah,
age, that you can like
yeah,
kind of access it
yeah,
through your parents and grandparents.
yeah, yeah.
Wow,
I'm not saying they're always
that's
right,
a
but what I'm trying to say is, I mean, I would say most of the time they probably want the best for you.
at
And
least do
also,
not
if you have
neglect what they are saying. Yeah,
exactly, and just take it on board. And it also applies to everything else. If you're struggling, you're not the only one that struggled. There are probably millions of people that struggled before that,
yeah,
right? So find some sort of knowledge that you don't have. And it's okay to say, hey, I know nothing about it, because you're not supposed to know about it,
yeah,
because they don't teach networking. They don't teach you how to apply to jobs. They don't really teach you how to deal with sort of stress in life, right? Because the skills that we are taught in school, those are the skills that were being taught in the 19th century when the schools opened,
yeah.
after the way that the factories were constructed. That's why we have a bell, like in the factory. That's why we have desk, like in a factory. This was the model. And unfortunately, it's not always the case that that educational model really goes into the demands of the time. Because if you look at it right now, there's a disparity about what is demanded in the labor market by employers and what has been really taught at school. And
It's not like
unfortunately,
integrated to society, even though it's
not
required.
really.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because it takes time, it's so hard to change anything in the education sector. Because think about it, 5 years ago there wasn't ChatGPT. Right now it's unavoidable. So this means they have to change the entire curriculum, the
Yeah.
entire system, the entire thought process to accommodate that, because most of the students, they're not going to do research anymore, like, like on the internet. But then when I was doing research on the internet, my parents were doing research in the library. So it's
Yeah.
like, whose path is better? Probably no one. But I think it's important to understand that, technology society work fast. There's not always a connect, but it's okay. That's
Yeah.
how we evolve. So just try to find someone who is more experienced and who can give you some good advice.
Oh. So it's basically like making the most out of your opportunities and trying to learn stuff, even if it's not directly accessible to you, learning it through the internet, because like it's very widely available even in Uzbekistan. Like 10,
Of
15
course,
years ago, it wasn't the case, but now,
for
thankfully,
sure.
like almost everyone does have access to the internet. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for this extensive and like meaningful and interesting conversation. I believe I was planning to have conversation about finance, but I learned more about life and
Thank you
finance
very much.
and living abroad. Yeah, thank you for your time, and I hope to meet you someday in person. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'll hit you up when I'm in South Korea. I hope. I
Yeah,
hope.
have a nice rest of the day, and yeah, hopefully